Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.
Everybody, welcome. It's great to see this crowd here. I'm Art Whitman, Chair of the Shaftsbury Select Board. I'd like to call this meeting of the Shaftsbury Select Board to order on Monday, November 7th, 2022 at 6:30. Is there anything on the agenda that anybody has a conflict of interest in?
No.
No.
We have minutes from the last meeting that were sent to everybody. Entertain a motion to accept.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
Moved by Tony, seconded by Joe.
Sure.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. I was not at the last meeting.
Okay. And Tony, but you were on video, or is that not?
I was on, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we have 401.
That's for what, October 17th?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I thought you handed me something.
Okay. Warrants. We have quite a few warrants. The first warrant is check warrant number 1, and this is for the payroll, or for the pension fund for the employees of Shaftsbury for $14,313.07.
So moved.
Moved by Joe, seconded by Tony. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried, 500.
Got too long a name.
Didn't wait out, sorry.
Next, I have payroll warrant number 8 for $25,407.40.
Good job.
So moved.
Moved by Joe, seconded by Tony. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried, 500.
Thank you.
And we have payroll, or check warrant number 12 for $36,462.46.
So moved.
Moved by Tony,
Second?
seconded by Joe. Items over $1,000. Got A&K Agri Services for $1,513 for hauling of gravel. Bennington County Regional Commission, $10,967.
It's the solid waste district.
Okay. GA Bowl fuel for $2,029. Another $1,056 for fuel. RCS Consulting, $1,009.25.
Hey, David, do we have more chairs?
We used to have them over there. Where are they?
Okay.
What consulting was
I
that?
think they're over, some
Okay,
over
you
there.
have the
RCS Consulting, this is the man that keeps our server going and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Sullivan and Powers, is that for the audit?
Your last audit payment.
The last of the auto payments, $3,380. TAM, it still goes by TAM, does it, for
Yeah, the system still has TAM, it's Casella.
Casella? Okay, $8,949. And that's it. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried, 500. And the last one is a warrant that we approved at our last meeting to enter into a contract for real estate on the Peter,
83 Buck Hill
yeah,
Road.
83 Buck Hill Road. I signed it, so everybody else should sign it.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any announcements? Other than that taxes are due on the 10th? We'll say it again when the treasurer's report comes up.
Oh, and don't forget to vote tomorrow.
That's right.
You're right.
Voting tomorrow.
That's right.
7 to 7, is that the hours for voting?
Yep. Correct,
Except
and
it's
yep,
like-
and it is at the town garage
Yes.
over on North Road, not at the firehouse.
Nothing else? Okay. Public comments, other than the ARPA thing, which is on the agenda later on? Yes.
I have a question based on the minutes of the meeting of October 17th,
Yep, go ahead.
and perhaps this relates to your warrant regarding 83 Buck Hill Road.
Yep.
But it says you went into executive session, and upon returning from executive session, Mr. Chickanowski moved to authorize Mr. Whitman to enter into a contingency for the possible real estate purchase of up to $1,000 in order to hold the property pending public discussion. There's no reference to the property, there's no reference to the owner, there's no reference why that was done. Can you just explain what that was for?
If you want to wait till line item number 9, we'll be talking about it. It's on the agenda. I can go over it now.
You can just tell me what the property is, and then...
83 Buck Hill,
83 Buck Hill Road.
yes.
It's what's right behind you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay. Treasury report, Melanie.
Treasurer was here for all day, left just prior to this meeting. It's tax week. She didn't get her report ready for this evening, so the report will just be to reiterate that taxes are due on the 10th, no later than 5 p.m. So we'll have a more in-depth report at the next meeting. But she was here all day and just could not get a report together for this evening.
I can assure you we're solvent.
Yes, that we are.
Okay. Next is the ARPA committee would like to report. I don't know if
We'll start with Andrea Baki. Andy, do you hear us?
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Baki. I'm the chair of the ARPA committee, the American Rescue Plan Committee. I wanted to introduce the committee members, and then one of our committee members is going to lead the presentation. What I wanted to do was, again, I'm Andrea Baki, and Betsy Haberfield is the vice chair. Tony Kulikowski, who sits on the select board, is also on the committee, as is Naomi Miller, who's a planning commission representative, and Rick Bennett, who's a public citizen member. Rick will be presenting in just a moment, and I just wanted to bring light to the fact that this ARPA presentation, based on the survey results, will have our recommendations, and you may have seen the report already come out as we released it before this evening. And if you didn't, it's going to go out tonight, and it will also put on the Town of Shaftsbury website. And there will be quite a few discussions in the future. The select board will, since they're making the final decision on how the money will be spent. So in being mindful of tonight's meeting, since it's going to be long, I think already, we're limiting the time to 15 minutes of a presentation, so we don't keep you forever. I just wanted to let you know to be mindful for our select board colleagues that there will be plenty of opportunities in the future for questions, so I don't want you to feel that you can't voice your questions in the future. So I just wanted to make that known, and just if we could try to be mindful, I'm not trying to shut anybody down. I just wanted to let you know that this is not the last time you'll be able to ask questions. So I will go ahead and pass this on to Rick, who's going to go ahead with the presentation. And I just want to say thank you so much to everyone in the community, residents, everyone that's been on office, Dave Kiernan, the select board. Everybody has been so helpful with just this whole project. We couldn't have done it without the feedback and the input from the community. So thank you very much, and I will hand it off to Rick.
Where do I go, Dave?
Right here. To the hot seat.
Just watch the wires. It may turn into a hot seat.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everyone online. So let's bring up the slide first. I will wait for that.
It's coming.
That would be impressive if you could give us a cash flow
Yeah.
on top of ARPA.
I cannot. I have some suggestions at the end that involve cash. All right, I see it. So, there we go.
There we go.
So again, good evening. The ARPA Committee is grateful to the community for faithfully providing thoughtful and detailed suggestions about how best to tackle the needs of our town and spend ARPA funds wisely. Members of our community, including Shaftsbury Elementary students, filled out surveys on paper and online. Last month, residents spent an evening of their time to attend an ARPA meeting to share their thoughts. Additionally, the committee heard suggestions and received proposals from the Shaftsbury Historical Society, the North Shaftsbury Community Club, and the McCullough Library. With 164 residents responding to the survey, the committee feels confident that a representative sample of opinions has been gathered. The data we will be presenting to you tonight reflect the suggestions and concerns voiced by these 164 residents who filled out the survey. Most respondents offered 2 suggestions. Some offered only 1, some more than 2. We've recorded each of these suggestions, and we've aggregated them by category. And that's what you're looking at here. We also heard from residents who attended a public meeting last month. Their concerns mirrored those we found in the surveys, and we've used them to better understand and reinforce this survey data. 2 things consistently stood out: community and connection. So let's look at this overall chart, which some people have handouts for, I think. Yes, it's exactly the same. And you'll see that we've categorized the responses into 4 major groups: center of commerce, community meeting spaces, infrastructure, and local services. The next slide, please. So, center of commerce, the largest number of suggestions at 31%, representing 84 respondents, related to the center of commerce. These responses speak to a concern for a lack of eateries and shops, generally places that provide an opportunity for local commerce and gathering spots. The next slide. A very close second on the list, at 28%, representing 76 respondents, spoke to community meeting spaces. Indoor or outdoor, large or small, there's a desire for places for townspeople to hold events and connect as a community. Most often was a suggestion of a town green as part of Cole Hall. The third category, infrastructure, was an equally close 27%, representing 73 respondents. These were specific improvements for general daily activity and recreation. Included sidewalks, hiking trails, bike paths, downtown beautification, a bus stop, charging stations, and upgrades to Howard Park. And finally, local services at 14%, representing 39 of the respondents. This related to creating more access to social services, especially as it relates to seniors and to youth. And last but not least, we reached out to the Shaftsbury school students for their input. Now, we weren't able to chart the data, but we are putting together something a little better than this as a representation of their responses. And I have to tell you, it is the cutest thing you'll ever read. Overall, what struck the community, what struck the committee is how the students' responses mirrored that of the data we already gathered. So it does seem clear that the next generation has the same wants for this town. So let's move on to my suggestions, the committee suggestions, I'm sorry. We have a different slide, so Dave will have to do a little magic here. Okay. Thank you, Dave. The ARPA committee believes that a significant portion of this once-in-a-generation cash infusion should be used to turn Cole Hall and its immediate surround into a community center, one that can host community events, both large and small, indoors or outdoors. But beginning with the smaller recommendations, we've tried to reflect those same priorities in these other venues. So the first suggestion is $20,000 for the Shaftsbury Historical Society, specifically for matching funds for a window replacement in the Governor Jonas Galusha homestead. We recognize the importance of our historical structures and our place on this historic Route 7A corridor. This represents only a fraction of work that needs to be done, but this grant has already been applied for and further supporting documents have been provided to the Select Board by the Historical Society with the promise of making a more community accessible space. Our second recommendation is $63,750 to the North Shaftsbury Community Club to repair its slate roof. The community club is a space already serving Shaftsbury, and it fits perfectly into the expressed needs of the respondents. Thirdly, $95,000 to the McCullough Free Library for the purchase of a 24-hour library satellite kiosk. This particular kiosk is produced by a company called Envisionware. 1/3 of the McCullough Library members are Shaftsbury residents, and we believe this would serve the community more effectively as part of the overall community space proposal. And then finally, the remaining roughly $820,000 to address the following. The creation of a community center on the grounds of Cole Hall with the addition of the purchase of the adjacent property. This community center should include a renovated and rethought out Cole Hall, a second indoor structure connected to Cole Hall with the library kiosk attached, a town green with a covered pavilion that can accommodate many people, an electric charging station, and some creatively designed signs to advertise and direct people to these town destinations. We also address infrastructure for outdoor activities, bike paths, sidewalks, hiking trails, downtown beautification like more flowers. And then lastly, to reestablish the Town Economic Development Committee with an assigned annual budget. So we thank you. The ARPA Committee thanks you for your time and appreciates the opportunity we've had to connect with the community. We trust the Select Board to take these recommendations as a priority when going through its decision-making process of allocating ARPA funds.
Thank you so much for all of that work.
Thank you, Rick.
It's-
Is there anything the select board has any questions for the ARPA committee?
I have a question in the audience.
Hi, I guess I'm ignorant. What is a library satellite kiosk, and what would it do for people who go to the library?
I'm glad you asked. I'm Jenny Rosicki, I'm the director at the McCullough Library.
Jenny, can
Can I
you-
just ask a question, if you could come up, because people at home are not going to be able to hear this.
Oh,
I know, weave your way through the wires, but
hello.
Hi.
I'm Jenny Rosicki, I'm the director at the McCullough Library, and I did bring a picture. If you're wondering what it looks like, and I'd be happy to pass this around, we'll start back here. It's basically a vending machine that you use with your library account. It's accessible 24 hours a day. You plug in your account login info, check out the titles that are available. Those are books, CDs, and we can put all sorts of interesting things in there, like craft kits. You select which one you'd like. It pops out like a vending machine, and when it's time to make a return, you can return it in any of there are bins underneath. So you slide it through. So it's a way of having better access and 24-hour access to library materials. It also provides a Wi-Fi hotspot and access to the library's digital collections, which at this point include ebooks, digital audiobooks, and video streaming. So that's what it does. That's what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to hold the picture up?
yeah, as soon as it comes around.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes.
I heard both Andrea and Rick say that there'll be plenty more opportunity for the public to comment, but obviously it's the board that will decide whether or not there'll be presentations to the board. Has the board established a schedule or when those public hearings or public opportunities will be, or when the board will ultimately set a date for making a decision?
We have 2 years until we have to decide how we're gonna spend the money, and then we got 2 years after that before the money is spent. So,
Starting from when?
We have 2 years, we have to December 31st, 2024 to actually submit a plan to the government on how we're going to spend the money. And then we have till December 31st, 2026 to actually spend the money. So it is a long horizon here. Not that, I don't think anybody wants to use all that time, but it's not anything that has to be done immediately.
we have not set up dates. We've got other things on the agenda. We got ordinances and that sort of stuff we have to pass in the next couple of meetings, so we have not set a definite time limit or time, but again, we've got 2 years also.
But the board will.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes.
And we'll
Absolutely.
publish it on the website and in other places, on Front Porch
No, this
Forum,
is-
all of the places that we
This is just
typically
the
do.
start. This is going to be a very long process.
Art, in terms of the process, you're probably still figuring it out, but are you envisioning that this would be a separate item voted on as part of the town's budget in March, or would this be handled off the budget as a totally separate item? I'm just curious how you're going to do that.
This money is not Shaftsbury taxpayers' money, okay? So it does not have to go before the taxpayers for their approval. The state was very specific. This is totally the discretion of the select board. And of course, we are not going to make a decision without everybody's having input on it. I think the very, very most important thing is that we need to get the Economic Development Committee going. Now there was a committee, I was chairman of it many years ago. Stanley Toole left and everybody was wondering what to do. We did a survey, we actually did the sewer project and all that sort of stuff. I think there's probably even some money in the budget for that, isn't there? It's not.
There's very little for the economic development, but that can easily be changed, and
Yeah.
seed money for an economic development committee can come from ARPA funds too.
Yep.
So to reestablish an economic development committee and hopefully hire a consultant to get the groundwork going could all come from ARPA funds.
So I think that's the first thing. I think that should be started. If somebody wants to take charge of that,
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
you've indicated in the past that you.
Yeah, I would be happy to.
You did on March 31st.
Share. I did on March 31st. You're got a good memory. And I know that it is also already on the website, advertising for members. So if there are folks that are interested in the public, to send a resume and a cover letter to Dave Kiernan here at the town hall.
And so this, like you said, we can actually use ARPA money
Yep.
to hire a consultant and that sort of stuff. We got somebody from Burlington that did an excellent job, and it's a very professional thing, okay?
Yes, if anybody has further suggestions or inquiries about what the money should be used for, should that be addressed to the committee, the ARPA committee, or to the board?
The ARPA committee terminates with this meeting, but I would envision, if we talk about this, that there'd be a formation of another type of committee whose parameters we haven't decided on yet, that would help guide the process from here. Because this is a long, complicated, intertwined procedure that is going to need some outside professional help as it's developed, and also a lot of community input. Because it is kind of a transformational thing we're talking about here. So, like I said, Art said, this is step one. We passed the starting line, and now there's a lot more to do. And there's always be changes as this is developed. Suddenly, one thing's going to look better than the other. So there's going to be a lot of flex in this, but there'll be, at least we've talked about a committee that would guide this, because it's certainly more than any of us can take on individually. So.
I only ask that because actually with this evening's meeting and the recommendations now going out publicly, there may be heightened interest in people wanting to know,
Yes.
okay, I'd like to get more involved and suggest where they should go. That's why I asked the question.
But the actual ARPA committee, this was their assignment, and we thank you very much for it. Now, we're gonna move on with other committees and that type of thing.
Yeah, I guess if anyone wanted to send something in, just send me an email and we'll accumulate those and, you know, that can all be presented when the committee's reformed to keep this going.
Looking down through some of the suggestions, we don't want to take the responsibility of some of the other groups in town that are, such as the Recreation Committee for Howard Park. They have a lot of money, there's a lot of money in the budget for them and that sort of stuff, and I just think that they should be involved in this too. Hiking trails, I think we're gonna, the town crew is gonna clean out.
We're actually rebuilding the Tilner Trail this week. So a lot of the things that came in for Howard Park suggestions were already planned, some of them as long ago as 2 years. It was all held up on a state permit. So Howard Park is going to be significantly changed next spring, because we can finally do 2.5 years worth of backed up construction. So,
And this is with all.
this is all rec money. This has nothing to do with ARPA funding.
That's right, the Recreation Committee has a huge.
Yeah, we have enough money to do everything we need, and we got a state grant the week before last, and we're good to go.
So,
I think there are some folks on the.
okay.
It has,
Is there, yes, I say send up.
She's muted.
Yes.
Okay, I finally got myself unmuted. So a few things here. First, I think from a citizen point of view, my thanks go out to the ARPA committee. They did a really great job, both in sending out the survey, but in compiling all the information for the select board and for citizens. So thank you to all of them. I know that's a lot of work to do. It sounds to me as though you set up a committee to get input from the community. I worry a little because it sounds like committee nightmares with you're setting up an economic or redeveloping the Economic Development Committee, which to me sounds as though from the select board point of view, that's a priority. I understand in reading some of the recommendations from the committee that some things may not be as much of a need as people perceive them to be, as grants come in and different organizations have different pots of money, either immediately available or available to them through grants. And this is one-time money, and it seems as though it would be really important to do one-time projects that contribute to the greater good of the community, but are not things that are going to require ongoing maintenance from a town budget point of view. So, recommendation for the committee to address some things at Cole Hall or make a, town green, are really valuable unless there's a lot of other money at the state that would help you already do those things. The other thing I'm hearing you say is, we have 4 years to deal with spending this money. I would rather hear from you guys that by fill in the date, you will have a plan. Because there's 4 years available doesn't mean we have to use 4 years, and frankly, I don't think it should take 4 years to figure out how to spend $1 million. God knows there are plenty of needs in the community. If you already have priorities, it would be valuable, I think, to the public at large to know that. And maybe that's the piece of the committee's work that you are focused on already. You can spend an awful lot of time beating something to death, but if you guys already know where you're headed, let's not waste that time. Tell us, and I'm sure there are lots of people who will provide feedback one way or the other. So kind of a more focused plan from you guys around time frame and whether or not you already have had discussion that leads you to particular priorities, I think would be really useful in general, so that we all go forward on the same path instead of, you know, this really diverse conversation, and then in the end we're going to end up where the select board is priorities. Thank you.
Okay. I don't feel I'm in any position to set a date for anything. I mean, this is there's so many things that can be intertwined. We haven't even started talking about some of the possibilities when we get to talking about the next thing on the agenda, is the fact that we just bought, or have the possibility to buy a whole bunch of land that opens up a whole bunch of possibilities out here. And I think it's way too soon to set an absolute agenda. We have not made any definite decisions. This is why we invited you in.
Cinda, I think one of the things I would say is I believe only Tony and myself really have been at most of the ARPA committee meetings. So this is the first time that some of these gentlemen on the board have heard some of these recommendations. And so I think that it's going to take us a little bit of time to come up with a game plan like you're thinking. But it is very much our intention to create a time frame and structure for kind of all of these possibilities, looking at these recommendations if they're feasible, and then making sure that we have public comments as well all the way along, because this is very much a community thing, although the five of us have the kind of weight on our shoulders of making the decision at the end. We want to make sure that all of you are involved and participatory.
Cinda, when we started the committee, our hope was that part of the money would be used as seed money and generate matching grants or other grants that are available. So I sort of disagree with you of spending. I'd hate to spend it all on on several permanent projects, as opposed to seeing how far we can spread this money and use it as generating more income for our, more grants for us to use. And that's when, community organizations came to us. We said, if we can use this as your seed money, like the Historical Society plans to do, that's perfect, because that doubles the money. And we're hoping to get as much out of this as possible. But I think the other thing is that there are a number of things that are going to happen that are already in the works that this money will be helpful for. And we will continue to make those public and have public input. The last thing is, I'm really looking forward to a group of people from the community, new, who want to come into the community and help us create the situations that were on this survey. There are so many volunteers who help this town move the way it does, and we want to continue to grow that base. Certainly in the economic development piece, that is absolutely important. I keep thinking of Arlington. Arlington had a group of people who finally came forward and are very active, and we're hoping that this is a new group that Martha will be able to group, spearhead. So, yeah, I think the possibilities are endless, but we keep working on it.
Thank you. And I certainly know that you guys are very knowledgeable about the community's needs. And, that's heartening for all of us in the community. And I know in the end, very good decisions will be made. $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but
No.
these days it doesn't go, is terribly far. And your notion of seed money that brings other money to town is a really interesting and exciting idea too. So I'm sure in the end you guys will make excellent decisions, and a bunch of us will be watching and hoping to contribute to the process.
And surprisingly, the survey results were not a surprise, that they are exactly what this board has been, directing and part of our goals. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty much on where we want to go. And it's exciting, very exciting.
Awesome, thank you very much.
I think
And
Alice
thank the committee.
had a comment.
Alice.
Oh, yes.
Zach, sorry.
Carl, you'll be next, I'm sorry. Yes, Alice.
For 22 years, every 2 years, I visited 1,100 homes in Shaftsbury, in the legislative district. I learned a lot about people's problems, their needs, their concerns. What struck me in all those years is how lonely many of our residents are. Very, very lonely, and they don't have the ability, many of them, to get out by themselves. The idea that was included in the report of having something in the community to include them, involve them, and all of us for that matter. I mean, take myself. Most of my really close friends, not counting Shaftsbury, are gone. They're dead. And I really feel that. And so are many of the people in this town who that has happened to as well. I think we need to offer something to engage our people in fun, educational activities of one kind or another. And I'm sure we can think of what that might be. But that's my thought.
Okay,
Thank you.
Carl?
I think what Cinda said and what you were saying before struck a bell with me. There are various groups already, very active volunteers in town, and the fact that Cinda mentioned the idea of a potential committee nightmare, I would ask the board as a suggestion that when you're considering how to proceed, that you might consider having a singular point of contact, one person or not more than two, that everyone in town will know that they go to, including the committees that maybe feel they're not getting their just due. It's so much easier for everyone, including the board, if you have one and no more than two people that are reporting to you, whether that's somebody from the board or whether it's somebody from the community, but leaving it up to a broad committee that's going to oversee it, I'm sure you see the situation. And I ask that be considered when you do that.
What do you feel about the Economic Development Committee being the point committee, or should it be something else? Just a possibility?
I think that so much of what we're talking about is revolving around the economic development, but also the social development of our town, that it I think makes a good fit for being the kind of contact person going forward, or the committee being that contact person, and then to liaise with lots of different organizations and, the planner and other folks.
Well, we'll certainly
But-
take it into consideration, but that's a thought.
I think,
We can spend a lot of time, but I think if you let us go on to the next thing, which is the fact that we could see from some of the responses that a community center was one of the big things. So the land, Peter Cross's land right behind us, 2.2 acres or something.
2.4, I believe it is.
2.4 acres, has a big old barn on it. That sort of stuff has been been for sale for a
at
long
least
time.
10 years.
And a lot of people have looked at it. We were concerned that if an entrepreneur knew what might need it, they would buy it ahead of us and flip it and charge us twice as much. So we voted, because this is ARPA money, we voted to enter into a contract. It's $1,000 to enter in the contract. We have till December 31st.
December 1st.
Or December 1st to act on it. So does that still leave our December 5th date, or do we have to do?
No, at the next meeting, with the purchase of property under ARPA funds, they do suggest that even though it doesn't have to be a townwide vote, that we have 2 meetings for public comment on it. This would be the first one. After the second meeting in November, that would be the second meeting, the 21st, and that would be the night we would need to vote to purchase the property.
Because our contract is, I thought it was the 31st, but.
I mean, we could extend it if the board so, desired to, if we get any feedback from the community, but it is the only really large open piece of property in the village designated center, which is important for funding.
I think,
Yeah,
Yes.
I looked into that purchase when I was the board chair 10 or so years ago.
Yep.
And I remember reviewing the statute, and it said for a town to acquire the land, there had to be a town vote. I think it doesn't have just to do with the source of the funds, but the fact that owning land is taking on a new liability, and essentially you have to insure it and take care of it and all that. So it's been a long time since I looked at the statute, and I would just encourage you maybe to talk to town council about, is a vote required for any purchase of town land? Because that was my opinion at the time.
We have, and both the VLCT attorneys and town attorney have agreed that ARPA funding does not require that kind of.
Okay, great.
We were very specific about trying to make sure that we did this right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. So with almost 2.5 acres right out in back, a lot of possibilities. Some people thought that a community center should be built. I'm warning you though that whatever you do out there is going to require maintenance. It's going to, you almost have to have a director, all that sort of stuff. All these things that Cinda said we shouldn't do, I don't see how we can do something and not have a more of a tax burden, but it's going to require money, the upkeep, the heating of it, and so on and so forth. And if you have something, you almost need a director that was responsible for coordinating things, and there's a whole bunch of possibilities. But
Can I just ask one other question about the details? Do you have a price yet?
yes, well, the asking price was $89,900.
Very good.
There's still hassling over how much responsibility we have to take with what's in the barn. It's a mess. So
Yeah, even if you let the fire department solve your problem for you, $89,900 is a great price, because we couldn't get that back 10 years ago. So I think it'd be very wise to do that.
Yes.
Have you looked into, or is there a need to look into, whether or not certain testing needs to be done for purposes of sewage or perk tests or other suitability of the property for what the town wants to use it for?
I think at the moment we are actually have a contract or have an agreement for a sewer study, is that not right?
Well, the sewer feasibility study was a kind of village district-wide study that would include back here for any potentiality of a limited system. You're asking about more like asbestos testing of the barn and demolition of that? I
Whatever
assume.
else, I'm not an engineer, but when you buy a
Yeah.
property, you just don't
Yeah.
look at the land, you
Right.
want to make sure it's going to be suitable for what you want to
Yeah.
use it for. I don't know what an engineer would look at, but usually get an engineer.
We do have already water, we already do have a septic system because it's all underneath where we tore out the garage. So we do have water and a septic that would accommodate the type of facility, you know, a smaller scale community center, but that could be upgraded too with an increased septic field. The building itself, I don't think there's any real intention of keeping the building one way or the other. So it's more demolition.
It's a solid building, the roof is good, does not leak, but there's absolutely no insulation, it's just bare. In fact,
I was
there's
thinking more in terms of the land itself as opposed to building. I'm not familiar with it.
I think that at one point, years ago, the Shire's housing project looked at that piece of land for building of affordable housing in Shaftsbury because of its ideal location. And so I think at that time, it had passed muster and in the ability to build multiple housing units on it.
So you say we're under contract now?
Yes.
And that's kind of binding until,
So
someone else can't come in there and...
That holds it until December 1st. We have to decide if we're gonna buy it at that time or let it go. Yep. But the reason we are talking to the public about it is that we want to answer all their questions about it. We don't have to have a public vote, but we have to have just a public understanding of what we're doing. Yes,
Is it okay for the public to come back out and take a look at it?
I don't think so at this time. Dave and I were given permission, but according to the realtor, Peter should have been there, but he was nice enough just to let us walk through. But the realtor is really very strict about, okay?
But obviously it's visible from our parking lot here.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so people could come to the parking lot and take a look and see where it's
Oh,
going
no,
to be.
this is the green area is the green grass is our area.
We ended at the cones.
Okay.
I had to put up with these people driving over my new grass. So.
And I believe that at one time, there were pictures of various parts of the property online from
It's
the real.
online now.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I believe that if you were curious, you could take a look. Not that there's much to see because there aren't any interior barn pictures at this moment, unfortunately.
Have you been in the barn?
Yes.
There's a lot of junk in there?
Yep.
Oh, we have somebody that can help out with that.
But, you know, that's all in the details, how much he's responsible for, how much we're gonna have to take. If we have to do some cleaning up, then there's gonna be a lowering of the price. But it opens up a whole bunch of possibilities.
Yeah.
So you can see why, there's no way we can set a date on when we're gonna decide all this, it's just,
Art, I think Alice had a,
Just another thought, something that's troubling me for some time now. Arthur, you made a very good point about working with other groups, other agencies, other whatever, who have pots of money. Some of them have a great deal of.
yes, they do.
And to get together with those people and combine things and have more money and more opportunities and more things is a really good idea.
That's right.
Right now, you probably read what I've read about the state our children are in the state of Vermont, and probably nationwide.
Alice, could you speak up? I can't hear you back here.
Sure. Boy, do I appreciate that problem. There's been a lot of news out and about of late about the condition of our children in this country, in our nation. Clearly, that applies to Vermont as well. Because of the pandemic, because the schools have been closed down, our children are 2 years behind academically. That's terrible. I was a school teacher, I know how hard it is to get kids from kindergarten to the second grade, from the first grade to the third. I mean, we have kids in the third, fourth grades who are working on a first and second grade level. In this state, we have this brilliant after-school program. And many schools, many towns have those programs at work. In Finland and in Iceland, they've got these great programs for kids, educational programs, all of which take place outdoors in the environment. They use the environment to teach math, to teach reading, social science, etc. If some of this money could be combined with the after-school program and other programs for children, and there are many of them, they have piles of money, I know that, and I work in that area for years. If we could do something for our kids right now, I think it'd be a really good thing.
Thank you.
So, just to recap, on the proposed buying of the land, we're putting it out to the general public today. Because we have a December 1st deadline to decide, we will be talking about it at our next meeting, which will be the November 21st, and then we'll have to vote at that meeting. The select board will have to vote at that meeting if we continue with it. But again, so there is one more date when public can comment on it if there is any concern by anybody. Okay. Any other things before we go on to the rest of our agenda? Again, thank you very much. This is great that you've come and expressed.
Thanks for the good work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the committee as well.
Yes.
It was a Herculean effort, and it was a great presentation. Thank you.
But really, I learned so much about the community and how wonderful Shaftsbury is.
Yes, you're right.
Really
Yes.
amazing.
We're very lucky to be Shaftsburyans. That's very true.
So you're all welcome to see us pass some more ordinances and that sort of stuff. You're also
Tomorrow's an early day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Be careful.
Yes.
Remember, people, think about an amphitheater for out there.
That was part of there was quite a.
I think several
Yes, they
people
did.
wrote
Even-
amphitheater on there,
Yeah,
actually.
well, even if not that, even
A bandstand. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about, yeah, oh, yeah, it was part of the, there were, so how many people did you get to put that in the survey?
Well, I paid them over.
Yeah, that was good, because there were a number of them.
So we're going on to the next
There were, I think there were.
firearm.
Hey, can we get,
It's an awesome idea.
Hammer down on this meeting.
we need to keep going here so we don't spend the night.
Still in session.
Yeah, okay, sorry. The next on the agenda is a proposed ordinance hearing on the firearms.
Oh, you did, right on the corner there. Oh, yeah.
The,
Might have to wait a minute or.
yeah, I guess so.
Wait till Lexi leaves. She fills it in.
Okay.
At our last meeting, this ordinance had been placed on the table. We voted to take it off the table and bring it to the floor. We then made a motion to pass it. There was concern about the BBs and all that sort of stuff. So the motion was withdrawn.
Right.
So it's still on the floor. We don't have to, it's not been tabled. We took it off the table, so it's on the floor. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to, a positive motion to pass it. And then we'll have discussion. Okay?
So moved.
All right. That's a move by Martha,
Second.
second by Joe. Now we're open for discussion. I guess we went through and just took out anything that made reference to air rifles, BBs,
Yeah,
that sort of
specifically,
stuff.
or compressed gas was taken
Yeah.
out of definition.
Yeah.
So it's strictly firearms or,
A powder
Strictly
charge.
firearms, I mean, every pistol, revolver, shotgun, rifle, or other device which by design uses an explosive charge to discharge a projectile.
Right.
We dropped out 3 words, or compressed gas.
Okay.
okay.
The rest of it remains this as it was.
You know, BB guns can still put out windows and all that sort of stuff, but this mainly is a noise ordinance in.
No, it's mainly a safety
It's a
ordinance.
safety
Right,
ordinance.
safety
Yeah.
ordinance.
So it's just limiting it to, the explosive gas rather than, compressed gas.
Yeah.
But also, part of our proposal is that we go to the planning commission too, and so.
Right. Well, we have that.
You have to separate them.
Yes, I
The
realize
ordinance
that.
is the ordinance,
Yeah.
how the board wants to proceed else is different.
But I just wanted to bring it
Yeah.
up, that when we do pass this, we still gotta talk further, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so, any other discussion? You're happy, we're happy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, we have a motion to pass this ordinance as it has been amended. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, opposed, so carried. 500.
Yeah, you'll find a block on the back page for your
They even
signature.
spelled out our names, so all we gotta do is just trace it, okay?
There you go.
So I guess the next question is this the responsibility of the chairman to go before the thing, or are you on the planning commission?
I am on the planning commission, yes.
Would
I
you-
just need a kind of concise, I had brought it up at our last planning commission meeting, saying that we
Okay.
were likely going to get an assignment from the select board, but,
Okay,
and knew it was something about changing a
Yep.
village commercial or residential to a potential R40?
I think
Or
it
is
is
it-
reversed, some are.
or it's
yeah,
go-
Well, it's 2 parts.
Okay,
Yeah, some is gonna come from RR to village residential, some is coming from village residential to RR.
okay. And I wasn't quite sure,
yeah.
so I thought if we do assign that to the planning commission, if we can get, a map and kind of where and what we're thinking,
I'll sketch something
then
out with Shelley, so she can.
that
give
would
you
be
that.
helpful.
I think-
Because our next meeting is on the 29th of November.
okay, so I think if you and I went, or if I came and
Sure.
and
Yeah.
presented it, but you need an understanding as things go
Which
forward.
which ways are going, I know it involves
Okay.
one of David Mance's properties, but I wasn't sure which way and where the boundaries were going
And
to
the
be.
important thing is the trailer, we don't want to split the trailer lot. The trailer lot was expanded, and now we want to make sure that the trailer lot, all the trailers are in this.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that we're very amenable to doing that.
29th,
The 29th at 6 PM is when we do.
Dave, we'll come up with something that we both can
Yeah,
present to them.
yeah.
Perfect.
Shelley and I will work out the details of it, we'll draw a little map for you.
Perfect.
Okay. The next thing is the assayer's office, errors and omissions. Our appointed lister is doing a fantastic job in finding all kinds of problems and correcting them and all that sort of stuff. This only affects the grand list Is it public knowledge who they are or anything? It's just.
Yeah, everything's public
Okay.
record, so.
They're just three different people whose, in one case, they had a lot of different properties listed all separately, and they combined them together and so on and so forth, so, the way I understand it, it affects the grand list only by $200,000. Or is it $2,000? Total RV difference?
No,
is
it's $200. $200.
$200 is all.
Yeah, well, you know, essentially real quick, one was they had a mobile home still listed on the property that isn't there anymore. Another house, the listers had failed to respond to, there had been a house fire. You're supposed to get a deduction on your property. It's only 50% rebuilt, so it was adjusted to reflect that. It's only 50% rebuilt.
Right.
And as Art said, the third property was a combination of 3 lots to correct a billing difference, and it's also in the District 1, so it just wasn't recorded correctly. So it's just a combination.
So I get, this is just a vote of the select board to let these errors be righted. I guess is the right word. Be corrected?
Corrected.
Okay.
So moved.
It's moved by Joe, second by Tony. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? I don't see any place to sign, so we just,
There's a signature page
but
probably the
for
last
the
one.
signature for the town clerk,
Above it on the right side, there's 5 slots for the selectmen persons. Somewhere on there.
yes, I do see it
All
now.
right, I knew it was in there somewhere.
Yep. Well, ask for a date, what is it, 11/7?
You know, we keep getting high-capacity crowds like this. We'll have to get an espresso bar in here.
Yeah.
I'll have to reopen the balcony.
More chairs.
We used to have a bunch of them. I guess we used them all.
No, this is all we ever had.
Oh,
This
okay, I
is,
thought we had
this is
more.
all the chairs
Yeah.
we have?
Yeah, we have, well, this is probably, this may be the second most we've ever had.
I know, it's great,
So,
super.
yeah.
We shouldn't, well, we know who they are. I was gonna say, you could sign them up.
Burn the benches, the wooden ones?
I was wondering, I was like, well, there used to be so many seating areas
Yeah,
in the old coal hall
yeah.
with its voluminous ceilings
Get the church pews back in
and
here.
stage.
Yeah,
Just think, years ago, there's all kinds of, gospel music being sang in here.
and this building has a really interesting history from the old movies they sold in
Yeah.
Right.
the 30s. Is it the ticket booth? The ticket window is right there. The class cloakroom is on the bottom of the staircase. Yeah.
Yeah. Graduation.
Lots of Girl Scout presentations.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the fact that as the state keeps track of how our grand list is comparing with what fair market values are.
Right.
Housing, as we know, has gone crazy, and it's all going to adjust and all that sort of stuff. We have not been told we have to do it, but the letter that they sent down saying if the trend continues, you may be told within a couple of years. Right now, the backlog of towns that want to do this, or some of them have to do it, is a couple of years out.
Yeah, at minimum.
A minimum, and even if they started, it takes another 2 years beyond that to actually do it, because they actually go around and reappraise every single facility, and so what we're asking is that permission from the select board to have Dave at least get our name on the agenda. This is not a commitment that we will actually do it, but at least it is we're on the list, okay? And
this would be using NIMRIC, the organization?
This would be getting on NIMRIC's list. They've
Okay.
asked us, because they're booking out already through into 25.
there are other companies that do it.
Right, but we
use
already
NIMRIC
are
and we feel
using
that-
them,
Yeah,
so it
there are
seems,
contracted assessors now,
okay.
and as they've been around to a lot of places, it's most logically going to fall to them anyway. But we do need to be on somebody's list. Our numbers are good, but the trend is obvious, and it becomes just a simple matter of equity, and we're going to have to do it at some point. It'd be better to at least be on the list.
We've been putting money aside. There's plenty of money to do this. It's a very expensive thing, but we have the money to do it.
Yeah, actually, the state gives us money every year to put into this account, and we have a substantial amount of money to do it, so it's not even a financial question.
And when was the last time we did our grand
I
list?
believe it was 10 years ago now. Could
Okay.
be as
And-
many as 12 or more now.
Isn't it usually every 10, though, that,
The ideal
the
is
cycle?
10. Yeah, we're
So we're a little, like,
pushing
right
the
on
envelope, but
the,
our numbers have always been good, but the numbers are becoming rapidly skewed.
right.
I mean, we changed a great deal on both our COD and CLA in the last year, and it's going to continue to swing towards the boundary where the state says we have to do something. And
Okay,
ideally, you don't want to take your town to the boundary, because that means you're just becoming very inequitable to the point where the
Right.
state's saying you have to do it. So, I
Right.
mean, frankly, to be honest, by the time, if we get on the list now, by the time we do it,
we're gonna be
we're
at
gonna-
the
yeah,
limit.
We're going to be pretty close to the limit anyway, so.
Okay,
But hopefully it'll be a time when it's not
quite
so-
as,
Well,
As
yeah,
inflated,
unfortunately,
yeah.
we'll get a few years of stabilization here to see where things shake out before they come do it. Because like I said, even when they start, if they happen to start towards the end of 25, we're not going to have a report for a year and a half or so after that. So it's pretty far off as it is.
right.
Okay, so need a motion?
I think you should have a motion to allow me to ask them.
So moved?
That's a move by Mike,
Second?
second by Joe. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So carried, 500. Okay, the next is, I don't know how many times we went through the cemetery regulations and finally got them right, and we never signed it.
Yeah, I forgot to bring it back to be signed. So here are the same cemetery regulations we have to sign now. The last change was, let's see, these were readopted in August 3rd. And I just forgot to bring them back to the board to sign. This was after we had an issue that Art went to the cemetery committee and asked that we reference the state statute in the regulations. So nothing else has changed. I just forgot to bring it back.
So entertain a motion to sign this. I guess we already do sign it, so I guess.
You've already actually approved it, but I had to change the words, so
It's been edited, so we have to sign
Yeah.
any revision.
Yeah, so let's make this.
they're making a motion anyway to sign, yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion to sign this document as revised.
Okay, that's a move by Mike, second by Tony. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. So carried, 500. Okay, proposed zoning bylaw changes. We have to schedule public hearings for any bylaw zoning changes.
Right, so we received some bylaw regulation changes from the planning commission. A couple of definition changes, a new section, and 2 new sections actually, which they will go into detail at the next meeting. I'm just here to let the public know this is coming up, and I need to go to the papers starting tomorrow. These have to be published before the first public hearing, and other notifications have to go out. So
2 public hearings?
2 public hearings. The first one will be December 5th, and the second will be December 19th. Regular select board meetings will be part of the select board meeting. We'll ask a representative of the planning commission to attend, well, both meetings, especially if there's any controversy over them. Like I said, the first 2 are definitional changes. There's a new section on no new public or member limited facility for the facility, the purpose of which is the promoting of or the discharge of munitions is permitted in the town of Shaftsbury. And an amendment to a zoning permanent site plan that would allow the zoning administrator to make limited changes to site plans without going back to the PC. And like I said, that's the broadest explanation of those, so we'll have a member of the planning commission be here at the next meeting. This is more like, this is coming up, I like to let people know things are coming up beforehand, especially the public, so they've heard this before.
We have 2 public meetings, but then it still has to be voted on at the town meeting. Is that not right?
Yes.
And so it will be on the ballot for March.
It will be on the ballot in March. All bylaws have to be
2023.
approved by the
That's right.
voters.
But this is the public hearings.
This
okay?
allows the select board to make changes. And then usually, if they're made, this is plenty of time to do it.
Okay, next we have the dog ordinance amendment. Very extensive dog ordinance here, and what we've done, or what Dave has done is added some charges.
Yeah.
Yeah, section 8,
The
impoundment fees.
Yeah, we've built a kennel. I mean, for decades, we relied on Red Bull as a kennel to house our dogs. When we had a brief agreement, we had an ACO who had things on our property. So we have yet another ACO who's done a great job, but we needed a kennel. So we built our own kennel, but there are costs involved in this. And we just had an impounded dog for 9 days.
We did.
And
Wow.
yes, and we turned it over to Second Chance yesterday. And there's a cost involved, so we need to recoup some of this cost. The ACO is required to attend to the dog twice a day. We have a heated kennel, which we're extending power to so that we can keep it heated and lit and everything else. It's actually quite nice, I must say. The road crew did an excellent job building it.
What are you heating it with?
I have a
Electric?
space heater.
Yeah,
It's not, it's one of those oil filled, it kind of looks like an old radiator.
Like a,
But you don't want anything like
Tippable.
pot tipping over
Yeah.
or anything like this. This tips over, it just goes off.
Yeah.
And I'll have a breaker when we get the place properly wired. Because we were kind of surprised we got a dog that quick.
Right, because you hadn't had one in
Right.
a year or two, you had said
You know, we had a
prior.
rough idea that I explained to Mike what I was looking for, which they took into a really good job, and it really came out very nice.
Nice.
And it was very successful having the dog there, who became quite a favorite of the road crew. And we already had 4 requirements before we turned it over for adopting it.
Oh, great.
But, we're trying not to get involved in that end of it.
Right.
Oh, you can't? No.
Well, there's a whole bunch of requirements for that. So anyway, this is just simply $25 flat fee if we have to impound the dog, a $20 charge per day for every day or fraction of a day that the dog is there, because that's just expensive. We have to, when we hired the ACO, as we have for decades, the ACO is paid basically an annual salary that's just divided monthly, just to be available to go on calls. When she was hired, we didn't realize we were going to need a kennel, which then requires an attendant. So this will compensate her. In most cases, when people retrieve the dogs, they will have to pay all this fees to get the dog back, which will basically cover per time spent there. In this case, which will happen when we have a stray like this was, we'll just have to absorb that cost. It's the cost of doing business as a town, there's not much you can do about it. But what we can recover, I do want to recover.
And you've also put in there that if we have repeat offenders, that it goes up and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, which I thought was kind of strange, but as I researched, it seems like every town has this. I guess some towns have some real repeat offenders, and every town had this same little escalating clause in it, so I figured I better put it in. It just comes up. Hopefully we'll never be charging that, but
You never know.
you never know, so it's there.
Could have a town dog.
Yeah. And then the only other changes were obviously renumbering the following 3 sections to reflect the addition of section 8.
Is there a way for us to update the language so it's more inclusive? Because it says Board of Selectmen all through this.
This
and
ordinance is on my little pile of ordinances to be completely rewritten because there's a model for this.
Okay, because it has
Yeah,
very
no, this is-
antiquated language.
This is an antique ordinance, but this I wanted to get in as a quick amendment, because an amendment you can sign tonight and the 60 days starts.
Okay,
But,
and so
yeah, no, this is
we'll
another
fix
one.
that language,
I don't
okay.
like a number of parts of this, but.
It's quite, yes.
Okay. So, how about a motion to adopt the dog ordinance as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Joe. Second by Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried, 500.
It's medieval.
Yes, well, it says 1971, so I suspect that there was probably no ladies on the board at that point, but
No, we still have some ordinances, and every time I start an ordinance, something new seems to come up, so.
yeah.
We keep backing up a little bit. So I can go right into the DPW report if you'd like, because there isn't much to say. They graded the last road they had to grade today for winter. They spent a good chunk of last week building a kennel. At least a couple of them did, and continue doing road work. This week, 2 to 3 of them each day are up at Howard Park, rebuilding the Kilman Trail, which is part of the overall park project we've been talking about. We mentioned a couple of pieces of equipment from Weaver, small like bobcats, so that we can see. It's pretty much the width of the trail we're trying to fix up. So we're taking down some trees and just regrading it, leveling it out. We're going to put in, resurface it with SurePack, the whole trail with SurePack. So it'll be nice when it goes in. When we finish the project in the spring, it'll have all the tree tags that we have, and when the drainage is done, we'll be able to.
Where do we buy our SurePack?
Our SurePack comes from Wallingford.
Wallingford.
It's what they use on the road.
Yeah, yeah. It's good material, and it really stays in place, so it's
I
good.
have to redo my driveway. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
using that.
Yeah, yeah, it's good material. What else are they doing? Well, helping with the election tomorrow. Art, who's gonna be there tomorrow? Yeah,
Ron?
Ron, thank you. Ron's gonna be there all day tomorrow. And, they just have like, they're still getting ready for winter. The trail will be the big thing all week this week. And we'll see when the snow starts. And we'll really have.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's really it for DPW.
Probably should be noted that the mower broke down with a major sensor gone inside the engine that.
No. What, a crank
This is the
sensor
new
or
one?
something?
The new one?
Yep.
When did that
Uh-oh.
happen? I didn't get told that.
Yeah.
When did it happen?
It happened over almost a month ago or so. They haven't been able to use it because so they're either gonna tear it apart in the garage or else they'll take it back to Salem, but it's gotta be, engine's gotta come out of it. Get
Oh,
a sensor
dear.
that's way
Jeez.
down in the middle of it.
That's
So the crank
expensive.
sensor.
And it's one of the
It's not our
sensors.
problem.
Are we still under warranty?
Oh, gosh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, that's good, because that's
Yeah.
not gonna be a cheap one
No.
No, it's.
at all.
Definitely under warranty.
Gosh. I had two business things.
Yes, go ahead.
So we had two folks step forward, one for the DRB and one for the Planning Commission, and I didn't know if we had, in the meeting that I had missed, talked about those two applications.
We set up an interview for the DRB candidate at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, 4 p.m. Wednesday, a Zoom.
This Wednesday?
It's a meeting with, we picked the committee.
Oh, we got it,
Art
okay.
and Mike, so two members. They'll interview before, it's not, I've never felt it was great to bring someone in here in a televised meeting and start asking them a million questions like an employment interview. So,
Sure.
They set that up for 4 o'clock. The other one was a PC member?
Yes.
I have one for the Economic Development Committee.
There's one for the PC.
Who's the PC?
I want to say it's Nancy Burns,
I've not seen anything for Nancy Brown.
but I can double
Yeah.
check and look.
Because I know Costin and Bro are on the agenda with the PC to speak with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just was wondering about that. The other thing that came up at the Planning Commission level, Chris had asked about noise ordinances for the town of Shaftsbury because we had thought about creating some bylaw changes to that, but I had figured that a noise ordinance might be better, and there have been several folks that have come to me that are public citizens about a noise ordinance. I don't believe we have one on the books at the moment,
No.
and so I didn't know if that's something that maybe we can put on the table, because it is something that folks are kind of stirring about at this
Yeah,
moment.
it had been discussed long before I got here. It's all
Right.
records on it somewhere.
What's
but-
noisy?
We talked about it.
Yeah.
There are several places in town that I guess there are noisy trucks and other things that have happened. I know one group of folks were talking about around the Whitman's area, but there have been other roads that apparently have been very noisy, and so they were talking about it, and I know that Bennington has a noise ordinance, and other towns in the area
Oh, yeah,
do,
lots of
so.
towns have it. It's,
And I know it's hard to enforce, and, you know, it gets into a lot of things, but I think it's worth us, especially because the Planning Commission had been thinking about doing bylaw amendments to kind of address it, to maybe hold, I said, hold on that, let me come back to the select board before we
Noise
do.
ordinances and bylaws are even worse.
Even
for
more
enforcement
murky,
than
yeah,
having
and
an
so
ordinance.
that's why I had said, let's hold and let me bring it back
Yeah.
to you all.
So, what you're saying is that we're better off making a noise ordinance rather than pass.
Correct, doing bylaws.
Okay.
From my research on things, it would be better for the
Bylaws
town.
are administratively enforced, and ordinances have an enforcement officer. So what you're doing is ordinances, you get a sheriff or state police have time.
That's right.
And the complainant, because, you know, it's another subjective thing. If you're the complainant, you think it's too loud, you sign the complaint with the sheriff's office. You know, it's just a cleaner way of doing it, because it's somewhat like the dog at large. Well, we can't sign a complaint for a dog at large because you're calling us, the dog's been gone for 3 hours. We have no first-hand knowledge. We can't go into a court if it got to court, which is the potentiality of it, and say, well, we were told. As soon as you say we were told,
It's
dismiss.
hearsay.
So would an ordinance set decibel levels, or, see,
Yes.
that's the problem is
We
that
do have a
somebody's-
noise reader now, though. Shelley has one because of the dog kennel bylaws, which have a very clear decibel level, so
Yeah.
we do have that in our possession somewhere in the town.
And for.
At this
you know,
moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways, towns happen, there's ways of massaging all this together.
Sure.
to work.
But do we have any jurisdiction over Route 7A, a truck going through?
I have
I
no,
didn't-
I'm assuming
think so.
probably not, but some of these other roads that, you know, people are on are definitely within the town of Shaftsbury
Yeah.
and not
You
highways.
would have a very difficult time putting any restriction on a moving vehicle.
And I suspect, and all the noise ordinances I've read are not necessarily dealing with vehicles per se, but other types of noise in the
It would also be
environment,
very
and
difficult to
so,
apply to dailies, which I get complaints about.
yeah.
But it's like, you know, it's an industrial zone, they're conducting an industrial
Right.
business. It's been there for 100 years, or however long it's been there. But, it's all something to look into.
Right, and there are
Something to look
clauses
into,
that do, but I just wanted to put that
Kind of gets me
forth.
the people that complain about the noise at Whitman's or Poland's now, but I mean, 'cause I kind of know that pretty well over there, and it was never a bother.
Just another issue.
If anything, the railroad makes
It's very loud
twice as
too,
much
yes.
noise
So,
There's nothing you can do about a railroad.
yeah.
That's right,
But
as far as
these are
the
just
Poland's
things
go.
that are coming up, and so I wanted to bring it up.
So is that something that,
Yeah, I'll pull together.
Check it out.
We'll see what we can do with it.
Okay.
just look at some other towns and,
Yeah, lots of towns have them. We'll just see what's out there and see what,
What makes sense?
Yeah, we'll see what's can be applied here.
Yeah.
And then we have the public debate on it and see where everybody thinks about it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Well,
That was all I had for
Okay.
other business.
anybody else have any other business? What were our action items? We signed everything that needed to be.
I think we'll probably put out some information about the Economic Development Committee, maybe on, not only on the website, but maybe on a Front Porch Forum
Yeah,
post or
we
something.
should talk about what,
Yeah.
how you want to go about setting up, because you did volunteer, I looked it up. It was March
I
31st.
did, and I willingly accept that
Yeah,
delightful
I do have
challenge.
one person who's interested.
Right.
And I haven't set up an appointment because,
Right, we hadn't
Gotta get
really
going.
started anything yet, so yes,
so
that
we'll
would be
figure
great.
that out, and then we
Okay.
get some applicants in.
I
Yeah.
think the idea of combining those two committees and then the
The
economic
ARPA
committee
and the,
can-
yeah.
Then the economic development
It's
committee can
just
extend.
would like Rep to think it over, because
Yeah.
economic development covers the whole area. We're talking about real nuts and bolts and putting things together.
A community center
And
thing,
it
yeah.
just strikes me that that might be overburdening for one committee. Although they're together, I agree,
Yeah,
that they're following the same pathway, but one is gonna have a lot of interpretive things with architects and engineers out here, and the Economic Development Committee is gonna have a lot of interaction with a consultant who I think we should hire to
Right.
guide it through.
yeah,
Another reason for having the time for the ARPA money is it's important to get that economic development going, because he's going to look at, she's going to look at, the committee's going to look at, well, maybe you should think about this.
right,
But then those ideas still have this operational level here of dealing with the architects and engineers. But I was just thinking, when
Yeah.
you mentioned it, it could be a real big burden for one group of volunteers. Because when the shovel hits the ground, it becomes a lot of work.
Right.
After the planning of something like that becomes a lot.
I'm thinking also, though, of Carl Corman's point of one kind of contact person
Yeah.
here internally. It might be that there are multiple things, and,
And an
you know,
easy
it
thing for
seems
that
like,
is Send me the emails and I'll disseminate them to the two committees. Because
Right.
I agree, and that
Right.
always is a problem with
Right.
committees, is committee pile up and just too many committees, too much talk and no procedure. So
Right.
I agree, they're close, but those combined has just become too much for essentially a group of volunteers to be
Right.
that deep into it. Things to think about moving forward.
So does it make sense to, for now, can we say that any further comments or concerns or points of view should go to David? And
Yeah.
then he would disseminate it to whatever
Yeah.
committee?
sure,
I think we got to give them something because they were real specific about.
Yeah.
how
Wanting
we do
community.
this.
And-
The one who's here, I mean, I can check my emails like 7 days a week anyway, so,
Right.
it's just, send them to me and I'll get them to the right person.
right.
This does become a problem if, let's pitch Mike this week, let's pitch Joe, let's have tomorrow.
I get them anyways. People send them, they CC me. So I think that that's a good idea. And I'm thinking also, if we do think of a committee that kind of is the spin-off of what ARPA was potentially, to have, you know, the planning commission folks and like a member from a planning commission again, and then, you know.
Well, I'm thinking,
Or
there are a
something.
number of committees that are already active, that so much of the ARPA recommendations should be funneled to.
In what way? Who are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking, we've got the rec committee, And a lot of, there was certainly a section on Howard Park and
Right.
and then from there, the spin-off would be community-wide things. And then, we've got the selectmen the select board that is dealing with Coal Hall as a center. So we've got that, we've got us working on it. So I think instead of creating yet another committee, I'm thinking that Dave would then funnel them, and then if we do need a separate committee for something, we could always use some of the other members. I'm just thinking we're gonna run out of people. And again, the committees, we've got so many committees working now.
Yeah,
But I think that if we maybe took a person from the rec committee and person from the select board, I think if we're disseminating it out to the committees, then there isn't a centralized space for us to be a repository of all the things that are happening with this potential big space. So I think, I agree that there are people, but, take somebody who's from the planning commission, take somebody from the select board, take somebody from the recreation committee, and then, fill it in with some other folks that maybe are interested or passionate about the situation.
And I've even speaking with town clerk today, and I agree with this too, the town clerk should be on the committee, because the major renovation here is downstairs. We already have a plan for it.
Right.
But
And
the
they get
major
calls all the
renovation is
time.
down here, and, they need to be part of it. And I know what you're saying too, Tony, but it's still, this is kind of a standalone project that in the end is probably gonna have $1 million, more than $1 million, like 1.25 by the time I get matching grants, and a separate coordinating base. I kind of think it keeps it cleaner. I don't know. Then this is why we need
to have a conversation about it. Yeah, so maybe we can come up with a plan.
And the one thing I didn't want to do was start creating a committee that took right over Howard Park. We got a
Right, no, I know that
that's-
Gina is doing a great job with steering the committee, so that's why
But I think you're
including,
right. I think if we can involve
bring
them and
somebody on.
let them see the whole picture of where they fit into it, it might make them work.
Right, and then we're all kind of swimming in the same pool,
Okay.
so.
That might, I should have a veteran on it too. Because I've been trying to get the Veterans Committee together, because my original simple thoughts before we got pandemic money was recreating with expanded
Right,
Veterans
I
Park
do.
out
I
here.
think you're right about that. I think it will be a super committee of the
It's gonna
the
take,
town folk.
It's like a village.
How we structure it is going to be important, so we'll
Right.
take time to think about how this could be structured.
Perfect. Great.
Okay.
Anyway,
This was a long one,
Well, but
No, we got a lot done.
but it's great. Great to have all the
I don't think there are any
people.
action items. I don't think there was anything we,
well, I'm going to get a sketch from Shelley for the zoning for the PC meeting.
yes, that's,
I'm going to find some noise ordinances to look at.
yep.
I'm going to do all the ads for the two ordinances, the firearms and the amended dog ordinance, because there's wording as things that have to go in the banner and everything. And then the clock starts ticking for the 60 days from tonight for someone to put in a petition to overturn them. I don't think any of these are controversial. Been talking about it, the firearms ordinance for months on end.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's going to oppose this, trying to recoup the expense of impounding dogs, so.
And then you've got your bylaw schedule.
Yeah, the bylaw schedule, which all has to go in the paper tomorrow too, so.
And just officially, the Dexter Trail Road, was that tabled indefinitely for?
That's tabled, we have to bring it off the table.
Okay,
and
I
deal
didn't
with
know
it,
about that.
Which could be just dismissing it.
Well,
Okay.
The way Robert's rules works, it's very odd. Congress tables things to have them fall off the table, which isn't really in our Robert's rules. So they kind of warn you about tabling forever. You can table things for, I think, 6 months, and then you're supposed to do something with them.
Okay.
Yeah, Congress, because it's, you know, these bills are floating around Congress left and right, they just want to get rid of something at the table.
Right.
And the history of Congress, it falls off the table, never to come back, but local boards are not supposed to do that.
Okay.
Okay, the way I read it is that when we made a comment here that we would have a meeting and go out there and look at things, okay?
Correct.
Joe went out by himself, Mike and I went out there. We met with them, although we didn't set up a meeting. We were
So
out-
who did you meet with? When you two went?
Brad, I'm not sure what his husband's name is.
Okay, Brad and James were there, and Lars.
Mike and Addie was there.
And Mike Yanati, okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering who
And
ended
so,
up going. Okay.
so my thought was that either you or you and I would go out. That, in my opinion, satisfies the fact that we all went and looked at it. It's a lot of walking, so Tony won't be able to.
Right, okay.
So there are some concerns that I have, that there are some areas that were improved, and if we make this something that can't be used, then those people are going to lose out on some improvements they made and that sort of stuff. So I think it should be, but they also want to make sure that they express their concerns, which we've heard before, but they want to keep making
Right,
sure.
certainly, yeah, to be
So-
kept in the loop.
So I think, to be fair, I think you and I should go out
Okay.
and take a look. And then we can bring it before the board,
Okay,
you know, take it off the table
right, and discuss and then
and discuss
vote
it.
one
and
way
that
or
sort
the
of
other.
stuff, okay?
Okay, all right.
Is that,
Yep, no, that's right, because it just does have to be brought back.
Yes,
Yes.
okay,
and Acted on.
okay.
but I think it's fair because we said we will have a meeting that the majority of us get out there and see it. okay?
Sure, okay.
And I can bring a gator or something, or you're comfortable walking, it's not,
Yeah, no, I'm
Okay,
not,
very
it's
good.
fine, I
Just-
can certainly, yeah,
yeah.
okay.
With it getting later, or getting dark earlier, we're gonna have to,
Figure out what
are you
makes
available like at
sense.
3:30 or something some days, or?
Sure,
Okay.
we can figure out
Okay.
my
well,
schedule,
It
yeah.
won't be this week, it'll probably be next week
Sure,
sometime, okay?
okay.
That's, and then the speed one is, that's a bad one. We've
The
got,
speed one is just gonna take time.
it's gonna take forever.
I'm trying to do some surveys. Just as another side of the speed, I've been having conversations with the sheriff, so I specifically asked for enforcement on select roads with summonses to be issued, because the bottom line is, if you're having a speeding problem, summonses are the solution, not changing the speed limit. But to change the speed limit on some of the roads that were asked is going to be difficult to follow any kind of engineering study. So this is just kicked back a little bit. Because I do want one document, not the 4 or 5 we have now.
Okay.
So the core ones are still there, because there's good reason to do it.
Right. So we're waiting on engineering studies for some of the other
Well,
folks that came
Speed studies
through?
out now, they're electronically recording the speed of vehicles to see if there's any credence to what's being said.
Okay, so we don't have to wait for the state on it,
There's
it's
no
all
state
local,
involvement.
okay.
Engineering study is kind of a misnomer.
Okay.
IT engineering study.
Got it,
Yeah,
okay.
it says they're called engineering studies, but they're not that specific. I mean, I used to do these in New Jersey anyway, so it's pretty easy to do. You can tell by the characteristics of a road, you can define it out, but I just can't take a straight road and change the speed limit or recommend it because it's a straight rural road.
Right,
It's
okay.
what it is.
But there are things that are measuring speed or doing whatever you need to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
at this
I-
moment out on some of the roads that
Yeah.
were concerned?
BCRC has one
Okay.
device,
I
and
see.
lots of towns want it, so I'm slowly getting it rotated around to look at some of the roads.
Some
to
of the
see if
roads,
there's
okay.
a real cause to be alarmed. There's not a road on earth where you can't find someone who's at the upper end, or someone with a loud car.
Sure.
But it's where the majority of the speed comes in, that's the critical point.
Okay, great.
You You just need a reason to change the road, you just can't do it.
Sure, I can imagine, but I'm glad to know it's in
Yeah.
progress.
It's in process.
Of some
It got kicked
kind.
back a bit, which is okay.
Right.
And normal
sure.
for ordinances, because you usually hear the most about them on the day you're voting on them.
Right,
So,
of course.
That just kicks it back a little
It's
bit.
just,
But I think it's important to understand that the state specifically says you just can't go making, the state doesn't want us making these speed limits that then start issuing citations and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
They have to be reasonable.
Yeah, they have to fit a certain criteria for the speed and everything.
okay.
And that's what's we're having trouble making people understand.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. I guess a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second by Tony, second by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. 500.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.